So, tell me about yourself. How did you get into slam, and I think how you've gone from there?
Oh, God.
The more information, the better.
The more information, the better. So I started actually doing performance poetry back in 87, 88 at a place called Worcester Artist Group. And that's where Leah DeShane and myself, mostly her incentive, started what became known as the Poets Asylum, because we all participated in an open mic there. That was, you would go from a poet to a folk musician to somebody doing performance art to a punk band to another poet. We wanted something more just with poetry, and she had the idea of starting just a poetry reading. And we did that out of the Worcester Artist Group for a couple of years, and then the coffee house I was working in, Coffee Kingdom in Worcester, had entertainment a couple nights a week, and this brand new thing had been brought into New England called Poetry Slam, which was actually brought from Chicago, where it started, by Patricia Smith and Michael Brown, who were two of the first people involved in slam in Chicago. And they had moved to Boston and wanted to get slam started in New England. So they were going out and doing demonstration slams in a bunch of different areas. So they came to the Coffee Kingdom in Worcester, where I was working, and decided they were going to do a demo slam and then hold an open slam and get people interested. And I'm like, okay, winner gets $10. I could use $10. What the hell? And loved it and hated it in equal measure. It was exciting. It was a lot of fun. I thought scoring of poets was crap. Holding up scorecards was just demoralizing to poetry, but you couldn't deny that it was fun and it was exciting.
So it's like the performance aspect was like, wow.
Oh, it was great.
And then the scoring was like, but I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's like, comes with the.
It comes with the territory, but I've come to love the fact that the scoring doesn't mean anything,
It's like.
Anybody who's done slam for a while realizes the scores are a shell game.
So it's like, whose line is it anyway?
Like,
Welcome to Whose Line. It's where everything's made up and points don't matter.
Yeah, it's like, we're going to hold up the scorecards. They don't mean anything. It makes, because if you say to somebody, oh, come to an open poetry reading, they're going to go, no. But if you say, you can come to this and you'll hear a poet's read and you get to hold up scorecards and tell them how much they suck. Oh, that's going to be great,
Incentive.
And they'll tell 9 poets that they suck, and the 10th one they'll be like, I don't like poetry, but that one, I liked her, and now you've got a poetry thing. So for that, slam was great, and
it got a lot of people into it.
It got a lot of people in, and I'm a sucker for a shell game, so it was fun. We're like, okay, let's give this a try. So we started running. At that point, we started running monthly slams in conjunction with our weekly reading, and eventually the slams just became such a huge part of what we were doing that by 93 we were fielding. In 93 we fielded a pickup team to the Nationals in San Francisco, and in 94 we had a full-blown, done through competition slam to send a team to Asheville. And that was the first time I had personally gone to the National Slam. And that was a revelation, to just be surrounded by these poets from all over the world and just seeing what everybody else was doing and feeding off their energy. I mean, at that point, it was huge for me. There were I think 24 teams that year. And I was like, wow, there were over 80 at Nationals this year. So, at 24 teams, it was like, wow, look at all these people doing this. There must be 200 people here for the slam. This is great. And just the energy of that really took hold and really helped build the open mic scene, build the poetry scene. The modern poetry scene. Worcester's always been a poetry town. When you got Stanley Kunitz and Elizabeth Bishop and James Tate, all these people coming from the city, it's going to be a poetry town. And, groups like Worcester County Poetry Association are really good at, maintaining the bedrock that makes Worcester a really good poetry town. And I think we kind of came in and it's like, okay, we've got the bedrock. Now let's put some new stuff on top of it.
Foundation now built.
Build off the foundation they laid down. You know, if it hadn't been for the people who came before us in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, the poetry never would have taken hold. And, you know, they did really good work and kept fertile ground, so when we planted our little slam seeds, they bloomed very quickly. And it really took off in Worcester. Worcester's a blue-collar town, so, you know, they like good, scrappy, loud,
enthusiastic.
no BS poetry. You know, don't give me flowers and rainbows. Tell me what's going on.
Tell me it hard.
You know, don't screw with us. You know, we will eat you alive. You know, and I like that. You know,
So that's what
I'm
you
a Worcester boy, so I understand. You know, if you're going to come in and have a beer after your shift, and you're going to listen to something, you want it to mean something. You got dirt under your nails. You want the person on stage to have, metaphorical dirt under their nails too. And, the poets who read for us do, we're all working class, whether we're professors or working in factories or whatever we do, we're all working class. We all kind of.
So that's what makes. So you think that gives Worcester a particular flavor compared to other poetry slam communities? Or?
I think it ties us to other poetry slam communities. I think we identify more with the Second City teams. Worcester has really close ties to Providence, really close ties to Manchester. Because they're like us, they're old factory towns. They're gritty, they're not pretty on the surface. Great place to live, but you wouldn't want to visit there. Hard towns. They're not easy places to live, but they're great places to live once you're there. You got to dig.
That sort of gritty atmosphere makes it very unique amongst like other places like Boston, you'd say?
Yeah. I mean, Boston has a great scene. I love the people and the poets that come out of it, but I think there's a different mentality in Boston or New York or Chicago or, San Francisco or any of the larger cities, New York produces some great poets. They got 6 million people to draw from. We've got 170,000 people to draw from. And the fact that we can hold our own says something about the tenacity of the city.
Wow.
I think that's, and that some of the great performance poets have either come out of the city or come through the city, I think says a lot for, that we do what we do and you'll like it or you won't, and we don't care. Because we're going to keep doing what we do, and if you don't like it, fine. There's something else out there for you, and we'll find the people who do like it. And we tend to gravitate to the other, the other cities that have that same mentality, and there are a lot of them. I love the Fayetteville, Arkansas team. Fayetteville is this little tiny, city up in the middle of the Ozarks, and it's like an oasis in the bastion of nothingness. And they're the same way. They are no
nonsense.
Crap, throw down. We're going to say what we think, and you're going to like it or hate it. We don't care. I love that, And all those teams tend to find each other, and we tend to kind of root for each other. I mean, Worcester loves the Boston scene. Boston loves the Worcester scene. Put us in a bout, and we're going to. We're going to fight for each other. We'll go out and hang out afterwards, but we're going to try and take them down a peg. They're going to try and take us down.
A friendly rivalry.
Oh yeah, and that in slam, if you're not having a friendly rivalry, it's not. You shouldn't be doing it. It's all about the poetry first. The people who come in and I've got. I want this championship and I want this title. And it's like, you're doing this for all the wrong reasons. If you win a championship, it should be a surprise. You should go in there thinking, I'm going to do the best poem I can and connect with the audience. If the judges like it, great. If they don't, who cares? But if you're going in there to try and win, you're in the wrong game. Go take up lacrosse. We let because the people who matter in slam understand the scores don't matter. You know, everybody wants to do well. Nobody likes to get a 2 from a judge.
It's cool to
But
win, but I mean,
it's good to win, but it's more fun to get up there and walk off the stage and go, that was the piece I wanted to do, and that's the way I wanted to do it. You know, and not care what the scores are.
right.
And that's when it's most fun. I tell people one of the worst years I ever had at Nationals was the year I was on the team that won. And it's true, because I didn't get to enjoy myself. You know, because I was busy getting ready for the next bout every night, and then everything was done, and it's like, okay, we all have to go home now. It's like I didn't get to hang out, I didn't get to listen to people swapping poems, I didn't get to hear other teams. This isn't any fun. I made the Worcester team the next year, and the first thing I just pulled myself off of it. It's like, nah, I don't. No, I want to listen this year.
Yeah.
I want to have fun. And the few teams I've done after that, you know, I've sat down with them. It's like, I'll be on the team, I'll do the best I can, but I'm not going to kill myself to try and make final stage. I don't care. And to Worcester's credit, everybody else on the team is like, okay, well, what can we do that's new? What can we do that's fun? You know, how do we get these poems to perform really well? Not how do we get good scores?
Wow.
You know, there are a lot of people in slam who are all about strategy and trying to get the great scores. Let them have fun. I don't, I'll giggle at them all day long. You know, have fun with it. You know, did you write a really good poem?
That's a very big perspective.
You know, I tell every year when we have a team, I get the team together and I say, you know, there's one person, every time you get up and slam, there's one person in the audience who needs to hear that poem.
Yeah,
and
Liz mentioned that.
Yeah, and you may not even know who it is, and you probably won't. But this is your one chance to make that connection. Don't blow it. And if they can get up there and make that connection, you know, and do that piece better than they've ever done it before, they can get all zeros, and I don't care, because they've done the art of the service. And I think ultimately that's what slam does.
It's about making connections.
It makes it more immediate. You know, if you've got people in the audience holding up scorecards, you have to deal with the audience. You can't just get up there, you know, orate from behind a podium. They will eat you alive, and you're not making any connection. You have to connect with the audience. You have to say to them, you know, I understand. You know, it's a conversation. The 3 minutes you're on stage are your half of the conversation. And as soon as you step off, it's your duty to shut your mouth and listen. And that's not listening to the scores, it's listening to the audience reaction, it's listening to the feedback you get. You know, I've gotten great scores, which don't mean anything. The woman in tears who grabs me in the back hallway afterwards and says, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that right now, because it lays out whatever story. It's like, that's a blessing to me, you know. I always
It's a very powerful statement right there.
Well, you know, I say to my boys, you know, you're speaking to one person in the audience, and you won't know who that is. When you get to find out who that was and that they did hear, what more can any artist want? I mean, I don't care if you're a painter, a musician, a dancer, what more can you ask for than to be able to look in the eye of the person you just connected with? That's your job. Everything else is window dressing. That is the pinnacle of what your job is.
So that's a very amazing sort of perspective. How often does that happen?
I've had it happen 5 or 6 times in 25 years.
Sure.
And every time it just rocks me right back, you know. And I feel
That's amazing.
damn lucky that it's happened that many times. Yeah, for some artists it never happens, you know. And to never be able to get that direct feedback, but to still go out and do everything you can every time.
Tenacity.
That's an art. That's the difference between a performer and an artist. You know, and you see that in athletes. You see that in, you know, carpenters, tradesmen. You see that in, you know, computer programmers. You see it in scientists. You see it in every profession. You know, you've got the people who do their job, and then you've got the people who are like, I know I can get this right, you know. I'm gonna figure out what this chemical breakdown is, and I'm gonna make this work. You know, and they'll never know the end user 5 years down the line, but because they did what they could do, and they elevated a job to an art form, somebody else is gonna suffer a positive benefit from that, and that's awesome.
It's a very interesting perspective. Very good. Wow. That's neat.
It's how I try, you know, and it sounds great, and it's one of those, you know, do as I say, not as I do sort of thing. You know, I try and walk what I say. And the older you get, the more it's easier to do. You know, I'm going to be 46 this month, you know. I'm on the downhill. You know, there's still a long journey ahead, but I'm on the downhill. So I worry less about the little crap. You know, it's all the bigger things. You know, and I think any artist, as you mature, you know, it's kind of like you make your splash. Okay, you made your splash, now swim. You know, and if you want to stay pertinent, if you want to stay creative, you got to keep swimming. And I've been swimming a long time. Sometimes I even stay above the surface. But Tony Brown, who's a big, important poet in the Worcester scene right now, always talks about he doesn't necessarily want his legacy to continue after he dies, but he wants his poems remembered. And I think that's the perfect perspective. If people remember his poems 100 years after he's passed, that's, you know, the best an artist can hope for in that sense. You know, whether they know they're his or not is irrelevant.
As long as the art stays alive.
As long as the art is still important. And I feel the same way. You know, 100 years down the road, I don't care if people know that I wrote that poem. I'm dead. You know, but if that poem can still touch somebody 100 years later, you know, that's awesome. You know, that we look back at artists from the Renaissance and are still in awe and still amazed by the level of artistry. You know, that's a testament. You know, I work with arms and armor all day. You know, I work with pieces that most of the time we don't know who made them, but that craftsmanship survives, and it's still beautiful. And it's still functional 400, 500, 1,000 years after it was made. You know, to be able to live through your creativity for 1,000 years, what artist wouldn't want that? You know, name or no name, who cares? I don't need my name to live forever. I just want, you know, let me inspire somebody else who writes a poem that everybody knows they're being. If my little ripple will move them a little bit forward, okay, that's good, because they'll inspire somebody else and the chain continues.
Wow. So I think, you know, when I was talking to Liz, she mentioned that she recently became the slam master here, and that you've been otherwise like basically the main slam master for the past otherwise.
Yeah, I was the slam master from when we started in 91 to 2000, and then Tony Brown took it over for a couple of years, and then I helped out for a bit. John Wolfe took over for a couple of years. I kind of helped through again, and now it's Liz and Sarah Sapienza are the two running it. Liz is the slam master, Sarah does the booking. And I sit back and watch them do all the work. You know, take a night off when I want to. And, you know, it's nice. You know,
It's nice.
I did my 20 plus years. I'm done. You know.
Yeah. So I talked to Leia, and she's like, I'm still part of the community, but I'm not as active about it. So
She's around the fringes.
yeah.
And that's, I mean, the scene does that. We've had a lot of people come through, and they're, you know, involved for a couple of years, and they wander out. Leah was involved for, God, 20 years plus. I mean, actively involved, and then she finally
Pulled
started
away.
pulling back, because, I mean, she went and she got her master's degree. She published a collection of her poetry. She's, you know, doing a lot of really important writing. She's editing, you know, anthologies. She's doing copy editing for other people. You know, she's doing a lot of really, some of the best writing of her life. I mean, her writing is just jaw-droppingly amazing. Always has been. But every time I hear a new piece, it's like, oh my God. You know, you keep going up and going up.
Keep breaking the limit.
I don't think she's going to hit a limit. I think she's going to keep getting better and better. Like, her last poem is going to be spectacular, and then she's going to drop dead at 90. You know, but, you know, slam is, I won't say it's a young person's game. Because
You think it's
not.
like you need to pass the torch at some point?
I think you need to pass the torch at some point, and I think at some point you're like, okay, I did the slam, and that was fun, and it kind of refined a set of skills, and now
It's time to move to the next
what's
thing.
next? And it's not even move up to the next level, it's like move on.
Move to whatever
Yeah.
life has in store.
You know, it's like, okay, I worked with, you know, oil and canvas for 5 years, okay, let me try pastels. Or let me move to larger canvases, or let me try watercolors now.
Some different thing to try
Yeah.
out. Something to,
Take what you learned and move it to
something else.
something else. And a lot of people do that. You know, there are a lot of people who did slam and kind of honed their performance and their writing and their editing in slam, and got real comfortable with calling themselves poets, and then went on to get their masters or their PhDs, went on to teach, went on to write, went on to totally different careers, but carried what they learned. Because, I mean, you learn a lot. I mean, the poetry, learning how to present your poems well, interact with an audience, edit, you know, deal with disappointment. You know, those are great skills, but also, you know, the organizing, the, you know, discipline of sitting down and working on your piece, being self-critical without being self-damning, having realistic goals, you know, striving to do more. That transfers to anything you do. You know, the poets who, you know, compete at the slam and then go back to their day jobs as police officers, mechanics, you know, mothers, you know, teachers, take that skill set and carry it over because it's transferable, you know. I mean, it's like the rest of life. If you're willing to learn something in one area, you can probably figure out things that you can transfer to everything else in your life. You know, but the people in slam tend to be, I think, a lot more open to
Innovation.
letting the boundaries bleed. You know, what I do in my day job bleeds into the poetry and the art, and what I do in the art and the poetry bleeds into my day job. I have no problem with that. I don't feel like I have to separate the boundaries.
Cool. So is
And
that-
everybody who lives in Worcester does two things. It's like, you know, oh, I do this, but I also,
do this.
you know,
This is my night side.
yeah, I work at Wyman Gordon all day, but I also tie my own flies for fly fishing. And then you look at the flies they do, and you're like, holy God, these are spectacular. I knock them out in my basement. You know, everybody does something else. You know,
This is my secret life.
yeah.
Um,
Well, we all want to have a secret life. Who doesn't? You know. By day, I am conservator. At night, I'm the wild performance poet. You know, it's fun.
so is there anyone or anything that particularly influenced the way that you performed or your poems?
I think early on, I mean, my big influences were watching other performance poets, and not necessarily people in slam, although there was a lot of them. You can't watch Patricia Smith perform and not, like, suck it up like a sponge. She's spellbinding on stage, still is. Michael Brown is amazing in a very understated way. You know, when everybody's yelling and screaming and jumping around, he'll stand there and just stock still quiet in a nice, even voice and just tear your heart out. You know, shows the importance of the pause. Leah Deshane was a huge influence on what I was doing because she has no fear. She'll come up with an idea and write it and refine it and edit it and get up and perform it with no fear of, well, I don't know if I should, I don't know if this is the... She believes in it and she runs with it. And that fearlessness is intoxicating. Tony Brown the same way. I mean, he's been performing around the scene long before slam ever existed. And it's the same thing. He's very prolific, you know. I mean, we're talking 500-600 poems a year, sort of prolific. And I don't think there's a dud in the bunch. But that same fearlessness of, I feel it, I'm going to write it, and here it is. And writing from all different perspectives, you know.
Yeah.
He wrote poems where he mentions his daughters. He has no kids, but the poems are so beautiful, people were convinced he had daughters.
Wow.
You know, that's cool. A little creepy, but cool, you know. But just that he would write about anything. You know, whatever pops into his mind, he'll sit and write about that. And that, to have somebody say to you, you can write about anything. You know, you don't have to be restricted. Write whatever you feel. You know, and then just seeing, you know, the other people. You know, every time you see another poet that you haven't seen before, you pick up something. Whether it's, you know, that's really cool, or I need to remember to never do that. Or, you know, that was a total cliche line, but damn it, you used it in a really cool way, you know. Always listening. You know, I've learned as much from the biker poets as I have from the academic poets, and both as important.
Yeah.
The academics just drink more.
So, I know that Liz and, well, Alex too, they do a lot of different things. They do like workshops and they do a little bit of coaching. Did you do a lot of that, advising fellow
I
poets?
mean, I coach the Worcester teams every year, or I have been. I'm not coaching them anymore because, well, I'm retired now. But I do a lot of coaching of the teams, and I do a lot of one-on-one coaching when people ask, or I'll look over people's poems and be like, can you look at it and tell me what you think? You know, am I on the right track? Am I on the wrong track? Which I always feel honored when I do that. But it's a very fine, for me it's a very fine line, because I want to say, you know, oh, this is really good, this isn't. But I don't want them to shape into the way I sound. Or the way I write.
You want them to keep their own voice.
Yeah. It's like you got your own voice, you got your own style. What can we do to make that better without changing it at all? Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. You know, and my advice always comes with, you can take it, you can ignore it, but you know, here it is. You know, and if somebody doesn't take my advice, it's fine. You know, it's half the time it's probably the right call to ignore it. You know, if you're good, you ask a lot of people. And you kind of, you know, it's a buffet. Take a little from here and a little from here. And as long as you keep doing what's comfortable, you'll keep your own sound, you'll keep your own style, but you'll learn at the same time.
It's interesting, because I'm a fan of various things. Like Bruce Lee says, for example, is one of the most prolific quotes that often gets said is, you want to be like water, because water is like, it's the softest material, but you can't destroy it. And then it takes the shape of everything else, and that whatever container it's in. So it takes whatever's good and then like leaves whatever's bad or not as great behind. So
Yeah.
it's cool. It's like just move to whatever works, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that concept of just, you know, if you trust yourself, you'll know what works for you and what doesn't. You know,
There's a little bit of, it's a bit
advice
of
for one
confidence.
person ain't gonna work for the other. As long as you have faith that what you're doing is the right thing to do.
So a good amount of it you think is like just confidence in like how
Just
you do it?
having faith in what you do, or at least having the balls to try it. You know, the old fake it until you make it sort of thing. You know, you may not feel confident,
Okay.
but get up there and throw it down like you're confident anyway. And eventually you'll get confident. You won't stop being nervous, you know. I still get nervous every time I read, even in an open mic. You know, and to me that's a good sign, because it means that I'm still taking it. I still think it's important. You know, the day I get up there and just, oh yeah, you know, totally calm, I'll know I'm done. And I won't get on stage again, because I've lost something special at that point. I think you should always be a little bit nervous, because it makes sure you're taking the, even if you're gonna have fun, you still need to have that touch of seriousness, you know. The audience is expecting something, you know, and you need to deliver. And whether it's on stage in front of 5,000 people or in an open mic in front of 9, you should still be giving the absolute best you can to that performance. And to do less is a disservice to your art, and a disservice to the audience. You know, what's the quote? The true measure of a person is what they do when no one's looking. You know, to me, the true measure of a poet or a performer is what they do when it's a small, comfortable room of people they know. Do they still give the absolute best they can, or at least try?
Cool.
I try. I don't always succeed. But I figure as long as I keep trying, I'm still moving forward.
Alright. That's pretty much everything I had. Plus, a lot, quite a bit.
You caught me after my 9th cup of coffee, so
okay.
rare form right now.
Yeah, I had a cup of coffee too, except it made me more tired. So I was like, oh man, I wish I was more like those people who are like addicted to coffee, so like they actually get the boost out of it.
You don't. I worked in a coffee house for 10 years, so it's like I get up in the morning. I lived upstairs too, so I get up in the morning, come down, pour some coffee, drink coffee all day, drink coffee all night, go upstairs and fall right to sleep. And I still do that. Like, you know, I'll drink coffee, drives my wife crazy. I'll drink coffee to 11 o'clock at night, be finishing my last cup, put it down, climb into bed. She's like, how do you do that? She has a cup of coffee after 5 o'clock. She's up all night.
Wow.
I'm like,
Oh.
I think I overloaded. You know, I just
now
drank
your
so much for
tolerance
so
is
long.
like,
whoop. You know, I go without coffee and I'm a wreck. You know, I cannot function at all. You know, I was in the hospital a couple of years ago and they didn't have any coffee for about a day and a half.
you're like,
The
I'm
nurses
miserable.
came in, they're like, you look like hell. I'm like, I need coffee. Caffeine, something, help me. And the nurse was totally sympathetic, and she brought me with a cup of coffee. I was like,
Okay, it's gonna be okay.
I'll be fine now. You know, and I was out an hour later. It was like my headache went away, my color came back. It's like, great, let's go. You know?
Great.
And don't talk to me about caffeine dependency. I don't care. You know.